So today I'm going to sew together the little jean mini skirt for the 18-inch doll. So I have my front piece here, and you can tell the front it has the notched out for the waistband, and the back is just pretty much a square rectangle piece of fabric. And then I have the two pieces cut for the pocket that we're going to put on the outside and the back. And then I have a 5.5 inch length of anywhere around 1/4 of an inch to 3/8 of an inch wide elastic for the back. So the first thing I did was I took my back piece to the iron, and along one of the edges I folded it down 1 inch and gave that a press. Then I tucked under about 1/4 of an inch here and gave it another press. And this is going to form our tunnel that we're going to put our elastic through on the back here. So the next thing to do is just to sew right here along this fold line, just a little seam to hold all that together, kind of close to the fold edge. And then on the front, I did the same thing, except I folded it where the two notches were on the sides. And then I rolled under about 1/4 of an inch and gave this another press. And then this one is decorative on the front. It does not have elastic through it. And I'm going to change my threads to do a top stitch out of a gold thread to resemble exactly what it looks like on your jeans. So we're going to be switching out our thread here to do this, and we're going to do what will look like the waistband on a pair of jeans. Okay, so I sewed this back folded over area to form the casing to put the elastic through. So what I do is I just take a safety pin and work that through one end of my elastic and start inserting that through the casing, and then slowly working this fabric around the elastic here. I say if you have some other devices, I know they make devices that you can attach to the elastic to do this, but I just always used a safety pin. You always seem to have those around, and no need to get a fancy gadget. So now I'm going to keep an eye on this end here. I want to make sure I don't pull my elastic beyond that end. Okay, I've come up to that now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a pin through my fabric and my elastic there to hold that. Find the end of my safety pin again here. And now I'm going to push this all the way out on this side. Try to make sure you keep your elastic flat as you're pulling it through here, that you don't get it twisted. And now I am going to work this back a little bit there so that it's just even with that end, and put another pin through here. And I'm just going to run a quick little stitch across here just to hold this in place. I'm going to do this at under 1/4 of an inch because I don't want this to show. All right, just like that, and that just holds the end, and I'll repeat that on the other side. All right, so now we're going to put the pocket pieces together. I changed what the pattern looks like. I tried it the way I originally showed you earlier in the video, with it being each pocket being one piece, and I had to change it so that they were two pieces. So you're going to have 4 pieces to create the two pockets. So now we're going to put these right side together, and this is the top edge. We're not going to sew along here. We're going to sew along the sides, across the bottom, and then up to the top again. Just going to line all this up. All right, so now I'm going to sew this, like I explained, 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Coming down here, stopping my needle down, sewing towards this point. Coming up the other side now. And now back off the top. I'm going to lock this in. All right, perfect. I think I like the way that's sewed together. Just cutting back my threads now. And then I am going to cut down these seam allowances pretty much in half. And then here, as I come to a corner, I'm going to give it a diagonal cut. Continue to my point. Across the point, being careful that I don't cut through my threads. And then back up to the top. All right, so just like that now, I've cut down my seams. Now I'm going to reach in here at the top and gently turn this. It's a tight fit, but it does turn easier than the other way did. So I'm just going to finish poking it out so that it's all right side out, using my point turner to help me do this. Poking very gently because this is a loose weave denim and I don't want to, it's a very lightweight denim. I don't want to poke through my seams accidentally. All right, so that definitely is looking like a pocket. Now we're going to come here to the top and we're going to rotate this under about 1/4 of an inch. Turn this all to the wrong side here along the top. Just take your time. Make sure you get it all lined up and nice and even. I like how that one looks. Say your seam ripper comes in handy here too because it's got that nice point on it to kind of help you tuck and pull under this fabric. Get it the way you want it. That looks pretty darn good. I like that little pocket. Much easier to do and a nicer finished look than it did with the original way I was going to try to do this. Just too small to do it the other way. So this works and I like that. Okay, so now I'm going to do the other one, exactly the same thing. Then I am going to switch out my thread and go with a gold that matches what jeans usually have for their stitching, so that this will look and resemble more of a real denim skirt. And I'll be back once I get to that point. All right, so I've got gold thread running through my upper stitch thread line here now, and I'm going to start this top stitch at a 0 stitch length. Just going to take a couple stitches right in place like that. Now I'm going to open this up to a 4 and see if we can get this to feed into this machine. There it goes. Point of your seam ripper works kind of like a stiletto too if you need it to. So I'm back at the other end now, and now I'm just going to sew in place again to lock this in. And then pull this out, and you can see that this sort of resembles what it looks like on a jean. And I think we're going to stay with that. I like that. So that's what we're going to do for the pocket. Then we're going to come over here to our skirt, and the center measures 3.5. So I'm just putting a pin here. And now from that fold line, I'm going to measure down 1.5 inches. I'm going to have this marked on your pattern so that you can do this with the water washable pen. So I'm going to place this here. And let's see how far off center I'm going to go on each side. About 5/8 of an inch off center. Just going to pin this guy in place here for now till we get the other one done, and then I'll add it. And then we'll go through and stitch these both on at the same time. So I'll be back once I get that other one stitched and in place. All right, so I've got both of them pinned in where I want them to be. They're 1.5 inches down from the top, and from the center, which is the 3.5 inch from the side, I have them 5/8 of an inch on either side away. So now we're just going to sew around this perimeter on both these, and that'll attach them to the skirt. And we're getting the back all done here now. So again, I'm starting at the 0 stitch length. Going to open this up to the 4. And I'm doing this close to the edge, probably about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge, I would guess. I'm going to turn the corner here with my needle down. That's how you turn the corners. You leave your needle in your fabric, raise your presser foot, switch to the direction you want to sew off into. Lower your presser foot and then continue sewing. Now I'm almost back up here at this top, so I'm going to turn back down to 0 to lock that in. All right, and that one is stitched on. Now you certainly don't have to use a contrasting thread if you don't want to. That's perfectly fine. All right, so there's one, and I'll do the other one, and then we'll attach the front to the back as our next part. All right, so both of the pockets are now stitched on the back. So now I'm going to take my front piece, which we haven't done the stitching on this front fold yet, because I wanted to leave it till I had my gold thread in the machine, because again, I want this to show up as an accent piece. So I'm now going to sew down right on that fold line here. And again, I'm starting at 0, going up to a 4, and then back down at the other end to 0. And I'm going to do that to attach this one, this front fold down to look like the front of a jean. And then we're going to do several more decorative stitches to this, and I'll show you that once I get this guy attached here first. All right, so I stitched that down to attach that to the fold tucked under in the back and finished. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come along here and I'm going to start a little bit to the right of 1/4 of an inch, because that's what the seam allowance is. And I'm going to stitch up here towards the top, and then I'm going to stitch down again just a little bit under 1/4 of an inch down this top, and then back down on this side. And that'll give it a look like a waistband to it. So again, I'm starting a little bit farther over than the 1/4 of an inch, and at a 0 stitch length here, just to get this started. Then I'm opening it up to the 4, and I'm going to stitch towards the top. I'm going to stop with my needle down. Now I'm going to come across this way, all across the top, and I'm going to stop before I get that 1/4 of an inch way from the edge here. And then I'm going to sew down till I come to this stitch line we already did, go back down to 0, and stop here. And that gives us like a finished waistband looking part here at the top. Now we're going to attach the front to the back. And this is very ravelly thread. So I am going to use my serger to do this. So I am just going to pin these in place. Matching up my sides. Now you can just sew a regular seam down here, which is actually what I'm going to do first, just to show you. And then you can zigzag this. You could bind this in using bias binding tape. You could do an overcast if your machine has that stitch on it. Or like what I'm going to do, the serger. So I've got these pinned with the right sides together down both sides. And now I'm going to stitch these, and I'll show you what that would be like. Now this top of the front curves here at the top, so follow that as your seam allowance for the 1/4 of an inch. So I'm locking this in at the top, curving it around, and now I'm coming down the straight side. Using a 2.5 inch, or not a 2.5 inch, 2.5 stitch length on my machine. All right, so that is done, except to finish off this seam. So like I said, there's multiple ways to do this. I'm going to take this to my serger and just serge this, and then we're going to put the hem on, and that is it. We're done. All right, so now to do the skirt, the hem, I think I'm going to give you 2 lengths. There's going to be a short one, which will be a true mini skirt, and then another one that'll be about 1 inch longer, the side seam, and that'll give you more of like a pencil skirt kind of look. And so I'm rolling this under a 1/4 of an inch and then a 1/4 of an inch again, just kind of eyeballing this for the hem. And I turned my seam, my side seam here, towards the back. So you can either stitch this across here with your machine, or hand stitch this over to give this a finished edge, or a flatter profile here on the top of the dress. So again, I'm just rolling this over a 1/4 of an inch, and then a 1/4 of an inch again to give me a fold here at the top. I'm going to do this all the way around the bottom. And then I am going to do a little top stitch again with the gold thread on the outside, or on the outside of the little skirt to give it that jean kind of finish and look. And then we're done. That's how quick and easy this little guy is. This was no problem at all, except to figure out those pockets initially. But once I got them in a good design that'll be easier to make, I think that this is a cute little skirt. And I am going to make at least one top, maybe a few different top varieties for this doll, and I'll be sharing those as well. So I am going to now sew just under a 1/4 of an inch to make sure that I catch that fold on the wrong side. And I am starting again at 0 so that you don't see the back stitching here on your top stitching. And now opening this back up to a 4. I'm going to sew around this whole bottom. Just under 1/4 of an inch seam allowance here, or stitch from this fold here. So that way I'm sure I catch the fold on the other side. All right, I'll be back once I get this all finished to show you the final product. All right, so there's the finished little mini skirt. See, I did a top stitch here to hold that hem up, and I used the gold thread for accents so it resembled jeans. There's the back with the 2 little decorative pockets on it, and that's it. Pretty cute, quite easy to sew, and I think it'll look very nice on the doll. You can follow me at Fabric Fun with Cricut Design Space group. It's a Facebook group. You need to be a member of Cricut Design Space Facebook group first. Then once you're accepted into that group, you can request to join the Fabric Fun group, and you'll just be placed right into the group. Hope to see you there.